1974, Gold's Gym, Venice Beach. The weights stopped clanging. Every head turned, because the man who just walked through that door wasn't supposed to be there. Bruce Lee. Arnold Schwarzenegger was mid-rep, 315 pounds on the bench. But something made him rack the bar early. Not fear, something else. Something he'd never felt before, in a gym where he was the undisputed king. The room got smaller. You need to understand what Gold's Gym was in 1974, not the corporate franchise you see in strip malls today. This was the original, the Mecca, a cramped, sweaty, iron cathedral where the world's greatest bodybuilders gathered to forge their bodies into weapons of mass destruction. The walls were concrete. The equipment was old school. No fancy machines, no climate control. Just free weights, determination, and the kind of primal energy that comes from people pushing their bodies past what nature intended. Arnold owned that space, not legally, but spiritually. This was his kingdom, his court, his domain. When he walked in, people stepped aside. When he trained, people watched. When he spoke, people listened. And now someone had just disrupted that entire ecosystem. Nobody said a word, they just watched. Because when Bruce Lee walks into your space, the energy shifts, the oxygen changes, and everybody knows it. The thing about Bruce, he didn't need to announce himself, didn't need to flex, didn't need to do anything except exist. His reputation walked 3 steps ahead of him. The man who moved too fast for cameras to capture, the martial artist who had redefined what the human body could do, the legend who had made his name not by building muscle, but by perfecting movement. Arnold stood up. 6-foot-2.235 pounds of Austrian muscle. The reigning Mr. Olympia, the biggest bodybuilder on the planet. He'd dominated every room he'd ever walked into. Until now. See, Arnold had been through wars. Not literal wars, but the kind that happened in gyms and on stages. He'd faced down competitors who outweighed him. Guys who had genetics he could only dream about. Men who wanted nothing more than to dethrone the Austrian oak and claim his title. And he'd beaten every single one of them. Not just with muscle, with mind, with strategy, with an understanding of how to dominate space, how to own a room, how to make people believe he was unbeatable before the competition even started. That's what made him great. Not just the body, the psychology, but right now, his psychology was being tested in a way it never had been before. Bruce was 5'7", maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. By bodybuilding standards, he looked almost frail. No massive chest, no tree trunk legs, no horseshoe triceps or cobra lats. But the way he carried himself, it wasn't about size. It was about presence, about knowing something nobody else in that room knew. And Arnold could see it. In Bruce's eyes, in his posture, in the way he breathed. This wasn't a bodybuilder. This was something else entirely. A different species of athlete. A different kind of dangerous. The kind you can't bench press your way out of. And here's what nobody tells you about that moment. It started 3 weeks earlier. Arnold had done an interview. Just another magazine piece. Muscle and Fitness, maybe. Or Iron Man. One of those publications that treated him like royalty because he sold magazines just by being on the cover. The writer asked him about martial arts, about fighters, about Bruce Lee. It wasn't a trap question, just a conversation. The early 70s was seeing this explosion of martial arts in American culture. Bruce had blown minds with Enter the Dragon. Kung Fu movies were everywhere. People were curious about how this related to traditional strength sports. And Arnold, being Arnold, gave an honest answer. The kind of honest that comes from supreme confidence bordering on arrogance. Bruce is impressive, but in a real fight, size matters, physics matters. I respect what he does, but let's be real. I've got 100 pounds on him. That's not opinion, that's math. He'd even laughed when he said it. Not mean, just matter of fact, like he was explaining why water flows downhill. You put a 235-pound man against a 140-pound man. Doesn't matter how fast you are, mass is mass. Force equals mass times acceleration. I learned that in school, and it's still true. The article came out, Bruce read it, and he didn't get angry. He didn't call anyone. He didn't issue a challenge. He just smiled. Because Bruce Lee didn't need to get angry. He just needed to show up. So there he was, Gold's Gym, Arnold's Kingdom. And everybody knew why he was there. Franco Columbu was the first to speak, Arnold's best friend, training partner. The guy who'd been there through everything. Franco was special. Not just because he was strong, not just because he was Mr. Olympia himself, but because he understood violence in a way most bodybuilders didn't. He'd been a boxer, a powerlifter, a man who'd been in actual fights, not just posing competitions, and Franco could feel it. The electricity in the air, the way everyone's shoulders had tensed up, the way the gym had transformed from a place of training into something else, something primal. "Bruce, man, good to see you." His voice was careful, diplomatic, the kind of tone you use when you're trying to de-escalate without looking like you're de-escalating. Bruce nodded, polite, calm. Then he looked at Arnold, and in that look was everything. No hostility, no aggression, just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes from absolute certainty about who you are and what you're capable of. "I read your interview. 5 words, that's all it took." The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Arnold didn't back down. He never backed down. That's not how you become Mr. Olympia. That's not how you conquer America as an immigrant with $40 and a dream. "Yeah, you gonna tell me I'm wrong?" Bruce smiled, not cocky, just knowing. "I'm not gonna tell you anything." Then he did something nobody expected. He walked to the heavy bag, the one in the corner, the leather beast that had absorbed thousands of Arnold's punches after brutal leg days, the bag that had seen the Austrian oak at his angriest, his most frustrated, his most determined. Bruce stood in front of it, didn't even get into a fighting stance, just stood there, relaxed, breathing. Arnold hit the bag. "Show me your strength." It wasn't a challenge, it was an invitation. But everyone in that gym knew it was more than that. Arnold looked around. Every eye was on him. Lou Ferrigno, Dave Draper, Ken Waller, the entire pantheon of bodybuilding greatness, watching, waiting. Lou was huge, even by Gold's standards. 6'5", 285 pounds, the man who'd later become the Hulk. But right now he looked like everyone else in the gym. Small, curious, a little bit nervous about what was going to happen next. Dave Draper, the blonde bomber, had stopped his workout completely. Dumbbells on the floor, towel over his shoulder, just watching. Ken Waller, always the loudest guy in the gym, was completely silent. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this moment was normal. He walked to the bag. Arnold rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. This was his element. Raw power, the thing he'd built his entire life around. Every calorie, every rep, every hour in the gym had been about becoming the strongest, most powerful version of himself possible. And he hit it. 350 pounds of force, maybe more. The kind of punch that came from legs built like tree trunks, a core trained to near inhuman levels, and arms that could curl more weight than most people could deadlift. The bag swung back hard, chain rattled. The impact echoed through the gym like a gunshot. The metal bracket holding the chain groaned. The ceiling beam it was attached to vibrated. You could feel the impact through the floor, solid, powerful, exactly what you'd expect from the strongest bodybuilder in the world. Some of the guys watching whistled. A couple clapped. That's what you do when you see something impressive. You acknowledge it. But Bruce didn't react, didn't clap, didn't nod, just watched, analyzed, the way a chess master watches an opponent's opening move. The bag swung back. Arnold caught it, held it steady, then looked at Bruce. "Your turn." Bruce nodded. He stepped forward. And this is where everything you think you know about power gets rewritten. There was no preparation, no ritual. Boxers bounce before they punch. Bodybuilders flex before they lift. Fighters get into stance before they strike. Bruce just existed, then moved. He didn't wind up, didn't chamber his fist, didn't do anything that looked like preparation. His weight shifted, maybe an inch. His hip rotated, subtle. His shoulder followed, connected. Everything moved as one unit, one machine, one perfectly calibrated weapon. He just moved. 1 inch, maybe less. His fist traveled, maybe 6 inches total. It looked like nothing, like a tap, like something that wouldn't even make the bag sway. The sound was different. Not a thud, a crack, sharp, clean, precise, like a whip, like a gunshot, like something breaking the sound barrier in miniature. The bag didn't swing back, it did something else. It jumped, like someone had kicked it from behind. The chain went slack for a split second, then snapped tight with a sound that made everyone in the gym flinch. And then came the secondary impact. Because Bruce didn't just hit the surface, he hit through it. The energy transferred deep into the bag. You could see it, the ripple, the wave moving through the leather and sand like a shockwave through water, and when it came back wrong, unstable, wobbling in a way heavy bags don't wobble. The chain swung erratic. The bag moved in 3 dimensions instead of 2. Lou Ferrigno's mouth was open. Dave Draper shook his head slowly. Ken Waller whispered something nobody else could hear. Arnold's face didn't change, but his eyes did. They widened, just slightly, just enough, because what he'd just witnessed contradicted every principle he'd built his life around. He'd hit with maximum force. Bruce had hit with maximum efficiency, and somehow, impossibly, the results weren't even close. Franco whispered something in Italian. Lou Ferrigno just stared. Dave Draper took a step back without realizing it. Bruce turned to Arnold. You hit with muscle, I hit with body. Your punch stops at the bag. Mine goes through the person. Arnold was silent. For maybe the first time in his life in a gym, he didn't have a comeback, because he'd just seen something that contradicted everything he knew about force and mass and power. But Bruce wasn't done. Hit me, 2 words. The gym went dead silent, because that wasn't just a challenge. That was a line in the sand. That was the moment where everything could go very right or very wrong. Franco stepped forward instinctively. This was his job, to protect Arnold, not physically. Arnold didn't need that, but strategically, to keep him from making mistakes that couldn't be taken back. Bruce, come on, man. Bruce raised a hand. Not aggressive, just stop. I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm trying to end an argument. He looked at Arnold again. He said size matters, physics matters, and you're right, but you're also wrong, and the only way you'll understand is if you try. Arnold shook his head. I'm not gonna hit you, Bruce. Why not? You said size matters, physics matters. You got 100 pounds on me. You're stronger than 99% of humans, so hit me. Prove your point. The thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's not stupid, he's calculating, strategic. He didn't become Mr. Olympia by being reckless. He didn't conquer Hollywood by making dumb decisions. And he knew in that moment that if he threw a punch at Bruce Lee, one of 2 things would happen. Either he'd miss and look foolish, and every person in that gym would remember it forever. The day Arnold Schwarzenegger swung at Bruce Lee and hit nothing but air. The day the Austrian oak got schooled in front of his own people, or he'd connect, and Bruce would make him regret it, would slip it, would redirect it, would use Arnold's own momentum against him, would turn 235 pounds of muscle into 235 pounds of liability, or worse. Bruce wouldn't do anything, would just take the hit, let Arnold punch him, and then stand there, unmoved, and prove that size doesn't matter as much as Arnold thought. Every scenario ended badly. This isn't a real fight, Arnold said. This is a gym. Bruce smiled, and this time, there was respect in it. Exactly. This is a gym, your gym, where you're the king, and I just walked in and changed the rules. Not with violence, not with anger, just with understanding. He walked closer, not aggressive, just present. You're stronger than me, bigger than me. You can lift more, push more, pull more. Nobody's arguing that. Your bench press is my body weight, plus another 100 pounds. Your biceps are bigger than my thighs. In a weightlifting competition, you destroy me. We both know that. He paused. Let that sink in. But strength without precision, it's just motion. Power without control, it's just chaos. You can generate incredible force, but where does it go? How much of it reaches the target? How much is wasted? Bruce stepped to the side, moved his hand in the air, demonstrating invisible principles. When you punched that bag, I saw your whole body engage. Legs, core, chest, shoulders, triceps. Beautiful, powerful. The physics worked perfectly. You generated massive force. Another pause. But it was unfocused, spread out across a wide surface. The bag absorbed it, distributed it, dissipated it. You hit the bag. I hit through the person behind the bag. You understand the difference? Arnold listened, really listened, because that's the other thing about Arnold. He learns, he adapts, he takes information and he uses it. That's what makes him great. Not just the muscle, the mind. You know what the difference is between you and me? Bruce continued. You train your body to look powerful. I train my body to be powerful. You lift weights to build muscle. I move weight to create force. Your body is a sculpture, designed to be admired. Mine is a weapon, designed to survive. He paused. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying they're different. And you need to understand that before you talk about real fights. The room was so quiet, you could hear the traffic outside on Pacific Avenue, the ocean breeze through the open garage door, the distant sound of a radio playing Zeppelin. Arnold extended his hand. Bruce took it. The handshake lasted 3 seconds, but everyone in that room knew they'd just witnessed something legendary. The moment the Austrian oak met the dragon, the moment muscle met martial arts, the moment two philosophies collided and found respect. "You want to train sometime?" Arnold asked. Bruce smiled. "You sure you can keep up?" Arnold laughed. "Real, genuine. Only one way to find out." And here's what happened next that nobody talks about. They did train, not that day, but later. Arnold started incorporating martial arts principles into his routine, not to become a fighter, but to understand movement, efficiency, power beyond size. Bruce showed him how to generate force from the hips, how to breathe during explosive movements, how to move weight with intention, and Arnold showed Bruce something to discipline, the kind it takes to transform your body completely, to push past pain every day, to build something from nothing through sheer will. They never became best friends. They were two different, but they became something more important. They became mutual respect. Years later, after Bruce died, Arnold would tell this story, not often, not publicly, but to the people close to him, the people who trained hard, the people who understood, and he'd always end it the same way. "Bruce taught me that being the biggest guy in the room doesn't make you the most dangerous. Being the smartest does, being the most precise, being the most aware." He'd pause. "And that day, at Gold's, I was the biggest, but he owned that room. He didn't need to throw a punch. He didn't need to get angry. He just showed me what I didn't know." Another pause. "And that's the lesson. There's always something you don't know. Always someone who can teach you. The moment you think you're at the top, that's when someone shows you there's another mountain to climb." The story became legend. Most people think it's exaggerated. Some think it never happened. But ask anyone who was there that day, Lou Fu, Franco, Dave Draper. They'll tell you it's true. They'll tell you they saw the moment when Arnold Schwarzenegger, the most dominant bodybuilder in history, learned that dominance comes in many forms. And they'll tell you one more thing. The look on Arnold's face when Bruce hit that bag, that wasn't fear. That wasn't intimidation. That was something deeper. Recognition. The recognition that greatness respects greatness. That power respects power. That legends don't need to destroy each other to prove their worth. They just need to show up. Bruce Lee showed up that day, and Arnold Schwarzenegger never forgot it. The bag still hangs in Gold's Gym. Different location now, different era. But some trainers who've been there long enough know the story. And every once in a while, when some cocky kid talks about how big and strong they are, they'll point to that bag, and they'll say 3 words. "Bruce Lee hit that," and the kid gets quiet. Because some stories don't need embellishment. Some moments don't need exaggeration. Some truths are powerful enough on their own. 1974, Gold's Gym, Venice Beach. The day the weights stopped clanging. The day the Austrian oak met the dragon. The day Arnold Schwarzenegger learned the most important lesson of his life. Size matters. Strength matters. Discipline matters. But wisdom, precision, understanding, those matter more. And sometimes, the smallest man in the room is the one who teaches you the biggest lesson. Bruce Lee walked out that day the same way he walked in. Quiet, calm, knowing. Arnold watched him leave, then went back to the bench, loaded up the bar, pressed 315 pounds again, but this time differently. More control, more intention, more precision. Because that's what happens. When you meet a master, you don't become them. You become better. Not about a fight that never happened, but about a moment that changed everything. Welcome to the legend. Welcome to the day Arnold met Bruce. Welcome to the truth behind the myth. This is what really happened, and now you know.